My name is Steve Cohn, and I'm City Councilman for District 3, which includes South Natomas and Gardenland Northgate. Well, I went through various stages. I think I wanted to be a baseball player for a long time until I realized I wasn't quite that good to be a professional. Then I kind of focused on, I thought I'd want to be president one day. Didn't quite make it there, but did get elected to city council and was also a lawyer, which I was interested in as a young person. Ultimately, I decided I didn't want to be a lawyer. I was kind of between law and politics, so I ended up doing both. I went to high school in Kansas City, which is in the Midwest, right? In fact, smack dab right in the center of the country, to a school called Southwest High School. I got a great education, and I really hope kids can have the same level of, and I went to all public schools, grade school, high school, really prepared me well for college. And then I went to Yale, which is a pretty good college, and went to law school at University of San Diego. So I feel like I had great education, and even Yale wasn't that expensive back then compared to what it is now. And of course, public schools were free, so it was a good education for, my dad was a teacher, and my mom worked in a school kind of as an assistant. So schools were important in our family. Education was very important. Well, I think what I'd like to share with today's youth is, first of all, don't be too sad or depressed that it seems like the economy is really bad and there aren't a lot of jobs, because this hopefully is temporary, and we've been through tough times, not too many as tough as they are now, but things will get better, so stick with it, number one. Number two, when you start to become part of a community, whether it's in Gardenland, Northgate, or wherever you choose to live, that you give back part of what you take, and that you give back to your community. Even if it's a small thing, it doesn't have to be money, it can be volunteer help, but help work with your community to try to improve your community. So it's not just about you and your life, it's also about the people around you. What impresses me is how welcoming people are and willing to work together. So I think that's great, because there's a lot of stuff to work on, especially because it's an older community that has a lot of, whether it's parks, the school grounds, the schools themselves, some of the businesses, the landscaping needs some TLC, and so that's something I'm really working on, trying to work to invest back in our parks and in the infrastructure so that people can take more pride in the area they live in. When you think of community, you're thinking of people working and together, cooperating to do something for the common good. That can be anything from a small town, a neighborhood, a city, a region, a nation, even a group of nations, like when the U.S. and its allies had to fight in World War II. Even that's a community. It can also be a group of people who just share similar ideas. So really what it's about is connecting with other people for a common purpose. But typically when we use that, in my line of work being a city councilman, I typically am thinking more about a neighborhood or people in a geographic area working to improve their area. But as I say, it can be people who share ideas as well and are working together to promote that. And being a council member, you certainly get involved in the areas that are within your council district, first and foremost, but then you also work with people who have interests in the environment, who have interests in education, In my case, I do a lot of work on transit and rail and trying to improve our bicycle infrastructure. So there's a lot of different communities that I work with. What I like about being on the city council is I think you can help the world local. You know, it's sort of the old saying, think globally but act locally. And for me, one of the biggest issues in the world today is climate change. But you haven't heard as much about it lately because the times have been tougher economically, so people are focused on that. But when the economy starts to turn around again, people will need to start focusing on this because it affects everybody in the world. If the climate gets so much warmer that species can't survive, including one day even humans. So we need to do our part to try to change that. And the thing that's important there is not only does that benefit the climate, but it benefits the community you live on. If this gets back to, you know, relying less on cars and on oil and oil products and relying more on renewable energy and types of transportation that don't use fossil fuels. But it also enables us to have a greener, more sustainable city that's more pleasant to live, a higher quality of life. So that's kind of the big picture. The way I work on that is I work on things that make biking or walking easier, have better. I'm on the RT board. We're trying to get light rail through Natomas, for example, up to the airport. So I work on specific things in our neighborhoods and in the city that help us become more sustainable. Well, you know, the things I'm probably most proud of that I've been on the council are related to all the parks in my district that we've been able to improve, partly with Pops in the Park, which is a concert series, but partly just putting money together. Now that I'm in Gardenland, Northgate, and Natomas, that my goal now is to do that for this area because the parks have been neglected in this area for quite a while and need a lot of investments. So that's what I'm really focused on right now, is trying to first get better baseball, softball fields, soccer fields for the kids in the neighborhood. There's a lot of other things left to do, I can tell you that, but that's kind of my highest priority right now. And then along Northgate, I'm trying to organize the businesses and property owners to work together to try to really improve the landscaping and beautify that area, make it more attractive to people that live there, but also people who could come and shop there. And I think, you know, working together we need to convert Northgate into a more walkable area. Right now you kind of feel like you got to drive wherever you go. And I think in the long term the youth are going to have to lead us into a future where we don't rely as much on cars and we can walk more, take buses, trains, bike, especially for trips that are close by. You know, if you just need to go to the store to get a few items, or you're going to the park or whatever. But a lot of that has to do with making it aesthetically better too, because people don't mind walking as much if it's a nice walk, shady walk. But if you're walking on asphalt and it's 100 degrees out and there's cars spewing fumes at you, you're not going to want to do that for very much. So why do I stress that? I mean, I think it makes for a better community if people aren't separated from each other by cars all the time. And then secondly, it's healthier. And if people walk more, they're going to have, less obesity, they'll be healthier, they'll have a tendency to eat better. And that'd be the other thing, is get more produce and more, healthy food choices to be available there. And not that I don't like the taco trucks, but we need all kinds of good healthy choices there.